So today's topic is structures, recruitment, and management of your leadership team. I will do a brief presentation and then go into the panelists for today, and we'll hear from them soon. So just quickly on the topic, why does this even matter? Well, if you look at the famous cycle that you will have seen many times in ICE, for those of you who have gone to convention, it's all a cycle. So if you're struggling in one department, for example, if you're struggling in leadership, then you can always work backwards to find what thing you need to improve on in order to improve whatever it is you're struggling with. So if those of you who are here, you might be looking for new ways to recruit new officers for the upcoming year. You might be looking for ways to manage your leadership team, but you won't get a great leadership team unless you have a good, strong membership base. And so that might be one place to start. The other way that you could use this cycle is you could see if you have something good. So say you do have a great leadership base, what can I do with that base, that great foundation, and move forward and make it even better? Well, great leadership gives you great activities, so on, image, membership, so on and so forth. So I like to use the cycle a lot for if I'm not sure where to begin. But it's a good reference point if you're looking for ways to improve your chapter in a specific area. So some quick general tips on deciding an officer structure. So every chapter is different. Every chapter has a different officer structure. Some chapters are huge. They have many officers. Some chapters are really small and they have 3, 4, sometimes even one chapter officer. But at minimum, you need a president, a VP, a treasurer, and a secretary. So if you can scrounge together 4 people, you got a pretty good, solid officer team. Beyond that, there's things that you should also probably consider. So when you're working in a leadership team, you want to make sure that you have set and aligned expectations from everyone. You have responsibilities for everybody as a whole and for every specific position individually, so that everyone is clear on what they need to do, what their job is in the entire organization, and what they should be focusing on. You should make it clear who they need to go to if they have some situation come up or if they need help with something, because if your officers are confused, then chances are problems are going to occur because they don't know what they're doing. And if they're too afraid to ask you for help, then that can lead to you not solving anything. So you want to make sure that you make it clear who they can go to for help if they need it. The other thing to think about is, does your chapter have a specific focus or something that could use a specific type of officer position, or maybe multiple types of officer positions to fill that goal or whatever it is you're trying to accomplish? So for example, if you really want to focus on your marketing, maybe you could use someone who's a graphic designer that can make flyers. Maybe you could use someone who's a webmaster who can make your website better, or something like that. So think about or consider having diverse officer positions or officer roles that people can go into so that they can feel like a part of the team, but also focus on something that really moves forward and supports your goals as a chapter. Do you have a variety of time commitments with your positions? So you have to keep in mind that not everybody has all the time in the world. I mean, some people, president, VP, treasurer, these people sign up for, everything. So they make sure they have the time commitment to follow through with these things. But a lot of other members may want to be may want to participate in the leadership team, but they don't have a lot of time to give. So be cognizant of that and try to come up with positions or activities that they can do to still support you, and make sure that you have groups of officers or just random members who are willing to help you move the chapter forward, but also they have time to do those things. Would you benefit from creating committees of officers and members? So that's, for those of you who went to convention, you saw the work of committees and how powerful that can be. This is generally used by larger chapters because obviously you need a lot of people to make that happen. But if you are a large chapter and you're looking for a way to differentiate your officer structure or get more people involved, committees are a great way to do that. So in terms of recruiting officers, some general tips. So one-on-one recruitment works the best. If you know somebody that you spoke to when they were a candidate and you're like, hey, this person would make a great leader, then that's the best way to get them to join, is to talk to them one-on-one, say, hey, I really think you'd be good at X, Y, and Z. You should really consider being an officer. And sometimes all people need is a little nudge in the right direction, and they're all they're ready to do whatever you ask. If recruitment is tough, it can help to have a plan to go forward and make it easier. So if you have a plan and you're just telling people, hey, we need hands to do X, Y, and Z, it's a lot easier for people to help support you than it is to just be like, we need recruitment to be better. That's very nebulous and not a lot of people will know what that means or what you're looking for. But if you outline, hey, this is what our definition of a successful recruitment campaign looks like, and I need you to do these 3 things for it, then a lot of people will be willing to put hours into helping you make sure that happens. Leverage your connections with current officers. Sometimes your officer team will also have one-on-one conversations with people they think are good. That's great. If you can get them to help you recruit, that's the best part. Try to diversify disciplines and majors. You obviously don't want an officer team that's all ME or all CV or so on and so forth. We are an all every major engineering honor society, so make sure you keep it as diverse as possible, and that will also help you recruit, because if people see people like them in the organization, they're more likely to join. Be honest about the time commitment. Don't lie to people and say, hey, it's not really that bad, and then give them 12 hours of things to do every week. That's very mean. We're not trying to harass people into joining. We just want them to, if they feel like they can make a difference, we'd like them on the team to help make the chapter even better. Recruitment begins during the initiation process, and we'll obviously talk about this a little bit more in depth and we've spoken about this in other panels too, but the impression that you give right when you start getting to know initiates, getting to know candidates, like that effort that you put in throughout the year is what makes them want to join. If you bring up officer positions earlier on in the process, then that's something that sits in the back of their mind and they start thinking about it. So when it does come time for elections and whatnot, then they're ready to raise their hand and be like, yeah, this is something I've been thinking about and I feel good about supporting and doing. And that'll help encourage you, it'll help encourage them to run if you tell them earlier on in the process and you make an effort to get to know them and make them feel valued. Also try to recruit new officers prior to district conferences so that they can attend and see what sort of the other side of Tabe Pai kind of looks like. It makes a big difference if you can get candidates to district conferences because they see how much fun it is, what kinds of professional connections they can make outside of just school, and what that looks like. So the golden rule for a president is to delegate. Your job is not to do everything. It's to make sure that the chapter is set up for success and that you're accomplishing the goals that you set out for yourself in the chapter and things go smoothly. You want to make sure things get done. You don't want to be the one exclusively doing them. That is why you have an officer team. So this is a problem that a lot of engineers have, is like we say, oh, well, I know I'm going to do it right, so I'm just going to do it myself. If you teach somebody else in your team how to do it properly, then they can become an asset to you and you're not bogged down doing all these things instead of focusing on furthering, the chapter as a whole and creating goals and going places. That's the fun part about being president, not the loads of work that comes with it. Okay, second golden rule of Tabe Pai. Communicate. So communication is very important, and this is something that's everybody knows it, but it's really hard to do, and a lot of people have a hard time doing it effectively. But if you can clearly communicate things in a clear manner and explain them to people properly, then it's easier for them to meet your expectations. Whereas if you're fuzzy, don't give good deadlines, you don't really explain any context behind anything, you can't really blame the other person on the other end for not living up to what you expected will turn out for that event or for that activity, because you never told them how it should have gone. So make communication a big priority, focus on it. There's different ways to communicate, so don't expect everyone's gonna communicate the way you do. Try to be more flexible and meet people halfway. So the SAB actually has quite a bit of resources on this. I linked the toolkit They have some guides in there for leadership structures and transitions. There's also our old panel highlights where we talked about this in the past, and the Officer Handbook.
Just for context, like we had around 20 initiates, and then by the end of my term, we went down to about 10 initiates per semester. So yeah, we kind of struggled just because, you know, getting a pool of 5 people from 20 people versus 10 is a little bit more difficult. But something that we did, I think that helped, was that we kind of had people that were interested, that were initiates. We had them shadow, and they would like kind of take on a role, or they would kind of shadow that person and almost take on and just kind of see what that would be like. And then we also split up in this elections, so that we elected half of our members around the December time, and then we elected the other half around the May term, which would help our situation.
Our chapter at Oklahoma Alpha, previously we used to have some problems, and then we implemented some strategies, which was one, I think similar to a lot of chapters actually. We didn't do this before, but now we do. VP goes to president, and then we were very vocal at all of our chapter meetings about asking for people's interests for our positions, as well as being upfront with the time commitments, which isn't too much for our chapter, as well as the resources available. So we have a huge Google Drive with all of the past exec teams files. So it just gives some reassurance, like you're not alone. If you have some troubles, like if someone's been through something, it's going to be on that drive. So we would just keep hammering it in and have consistency. And similar to how I think Kavya said about recruiting, a lot of our officer teams were multidisciplinary, and we would ask the people younger than us or in our same grade if they were interested. So
for my chapter, we have an officer team of about 20 people going into this upcoming semester, and some things that really helped us get more officers going into this semester. The first one was advertising at initiation. When people were at the peak of their excitement, they had just become members, and that was a great time to both advertise to the group that our officer applications were open, and also go up to individuals who we thought would make good leaders, good officers, and say, hey, I think you might be good for this position. We also, in the past, have held officer info sessions where we will go over different positions and what sort of commitments go along with them, so that people who might have the opportunity to find a certain position interesting or get to know about positions before they apply.
We would hold weekly officer meetings that were essentially required. And then also we would like schedule one event. I guess this is kind of in general, just because the events were for everyone. But like our social events were really popular amongst, you know, all of our members. But then we also made like all the officers attend it as well. We would schedule them around times that we all were available. So that was the main way. And then also we always had like an initiation dinner each semester. So, you know, by being an officer, and if you fulfilled all your tasks, you're able to go to the dinner with the dean and the chair. And we had like a lot of important people there. So it was definitely a good way to stay and get them engaged there.
Similar to what we do for our chapter members, we incentivize engagement in our activities by offering graduation regalia for our chapter members. And for our officers, we would have like an additional item from like the TBP store that we would say like, hey, if you do like certain amount or like XYZ activities like through the term or through the years, you also get this. I think a lot of people did the like very heavy like the book holder or thing, which is actually really awesome. I highly advise, if no one's gotten it, you should get it. It's really cool.
One thing that my chapter has done to maintain officer engagement is holding officer fun events, which are separate events for just officers, where they can just bond with one another and get to engage as a group of just like friends and cultivate that friendship without having to worry about officer responsibilities and all that comes along with running an event with members and candidates. And it allows, as I said, the building of friendship between officers, which gives people more it makes you more invested in staying and supporting each other, because now you're supporting your friends in addition to supporting your like officer team.
Incentives are the way to go. You don't want, I want to clarify though, you don't want to bribe them necessarily into staying. So everything that they suggested is it's a bonus on top of whatever work they do, but you want to try to get them involved as much as possible from within their hearts as you can.
During our officer meetings, we would kind of have our list of things that need to get done before the next one. And then there we could pretty much decide who was going to take each task, because, you know, you're able to consider, oh, if someone has a test this week, maybe not give them a task that week, or give them a smaller task. So that's kind of what we thought worked best, just verbally talking about it and always setting a deadline either by the next meeting, or if not, you know, whatever seemed reasonable for the task.
So we had each of our officer members associated with one event each, or one type of like bigger activity in TBP. And we paired them with another one of the officers so that everyone had one thing they had to focus on. And it was easy enough to go to each meeting and kind of have reminders about, hey, this is what you need to do. And you can work on stuff early. And if someone needed help, we could help them out. I think a lot of what we did was at officer meetings, if something could just get done in like 2 minutes, 5 minutes, we would just do it right there. Like send reminder emails or send something in a calendar or get a form done, so that like we knew that we were all busy. So it's really easy to say, oh, I'm going to do this when I get home tonight. And then next thing you know, it's been like 2 weeks and like things just have happened. And like, it's not like a reflection of you. You just are busy. So if we could do something then, we just did it then.
I think one thing that helps to delegate tasks is accepting help wherever somebody is interested in helping. So like previously, our chapters had one person who was really adamant that they wanted to be the person who grilled at our events. Then they can be the grill master, and that can be their position. And our chapter has a lot of different positions that are more specialized. So even if you don't have a bunch of people on your officer team, you can still, even if somebody comes to you and says like, hey, I'm really interested in doing this for the chapter, that they can then get in a way their own officer position of, thank you, that's what you'll be in charge of, and that'll be your responsibility. And when everybody has their own little individual package responsibilities, it's a lot easier to know, like, this is who's doing that, that's what they're in charge of, and this is who I'm going to go to check in on that and help them and make sure together we're getting that done.
You might do better to organize into committees and then have them all report at your more, I guess, executive board meeting with your president and vice president. That might be the best approach there. Or just having it, sometimes we just have like maybe a meeting, but it really be just in our group chat.
I think minimum we had 2 meetings a month, and one of those meetings we were at least able to have one day every month that every officer could meet, and that was enough for us. Or that if someone couldn't meet, we would either have another meeting if necessary with as many members, including the member that couldn't come, or we would just put whatever we had to talk about in our group me or our Discord, or at least at the time, we also could do like online meetings. I know during and after COVID, it's been more popularized, but we also did that to say, like, if someone couldn't physically be there, at least we could have a meeting online.
If you have a larger team, then you can get away with larger, like things that larger chapters do. So like the committee's idea that I mentioned in the presentation earlier is a good engagement tool as well, because now you're getting people involved in something they care about, and they can focus on something that they actually have an opinion on, as opposed to just having like going to the meetings and doing their their normal officer things. They have a specific like, hey, I love marketing, or I really want to set up for the banquet after initiation, and I really have a preference on what food truck we invite there. So I'm going to get really involved in what that entails. That gives people who care about that specific thing more opportunities to focus on that and put their energy towards that. Whereas if you did it with the whole team, maybe not everybody cares about what food truck they want at the banquet for after initiation. And so that will bore some people, but it'll really get others really invested. So cater to that. If you have a large team, you can get away with things like that. So that's a great engagement tool if you want to use it.
If you know someone's already taking leadership roles by the time they're getting initiated, you should absolutely approach them about being an officer, as soon as they are eligible and they want to become a full member, because their time's just going to get more limited. But if you can grab them early, or if they can at least maybe make room in their personal schedule to take on this role, but maybe back off on other roles, you can definitely leverage that.
We try to combat that by being very straightforward or very open, I guess, with what the time constraints are, what the responsibilities are, and what we expect for like an activity engagement or something that they need to be responsible for, so that they know when they're coming into the position or asking about interest for the position, what they need to do. And that we also do our officer initiation and our officer voting at the end of our spring semester, so that they have the summer before the fall to actually like get things rolling and whatnot. So it's a little bit easier for us than, because we used to have it at the beginning of fall semester, we would have officers, but that didn't really translate well. So that's what we end up doing.
Something that is valuable to get leaders who are also in other orgs and have leadership positions in other orgs is having a variety of officer positions that have different time commitments. So if somebody can't commit to the full range of time that would be required to be the secretary, the treasurer, the vice president, the president, they still could have a smaller, less time-consuming role where they're still helping their chapter grow and helping you all collectively work towards your goals, while also fitting it into their schedule, so that you're not missing out on people who are really excited about Tau Beta Pi, want to help with the org, but just don't have that full chunk of time that they're able to commit.
You really want strong leaders in especially in Tau Beta Pi, because if you have people who are strong leaders in other organizations, then that means they can be a strong leader of Tau Beta Pi too. And so making sure that you snag them one way or the other is the best thing to do. Another thing that I've heard people doing in the past is they will incentivize being in another org. So if there's, say, a member requirement of you have to go to 5 events before the semester ends, then in order to be active and get stoles and cords or whatever that might be, as an incentive, you could say if you are if you hold an officer position in another org, then we'll take off one of those event requirements. So you'll have to go to one less thing because you're participating in a leadership position in something else. And that keeps these people coming back because they're like, hey, I have the time commitment to do maybe 2 or 3 events, but I don't have the time commitment to do 4. And this helps kind of cut that down. So it lowers the amount of stuff that they have to do, but it still keeps them really engaged.